Keith Jarrett is a legendary jazz musician who was a prodigy at a very young age and started his career in jazz also at a very young age, still in his teens, while he was still in school, actually. And he had to leave school, and he went out on the road. He hooked up with probably one of the greatest other jazz musicians of that era, Miles Davis. He went on to have a career with quartets and other groups. But in this moment in our film, Keith is kind of out of luck. He's lost his record deal, and he's reinventing himself through this solo tour, which was this very unique thing where he stripped away every other component of jazz and found himself alone at a piano, improvising an entire concert. Probably one of the most challenging things you could do as an artist and as a jazz musician. But he did it. He had the bravery to do it. And through that, this amazing concert happened and is still loved by so many people today. I don't know like how he felt on that day about it or, you know, in the days after, but certainly over time as the popularity grew with this album, he sort of has distanced himself more and more from it. But I think that makes sense. It's one of these things, especially with what he was doing at that time, where he was playing once and then he was forgetting about it. I think his way of looking at those concerts was, once it happened, it's forgotten. And so I just don't think he has any interest in revisiting it. Also, he doesn't want it to be the only thing he's known for. And I would encourage people who see the film not to just stop at this concert, but to explore his other works, to explore his work with other people, his classical renditions, his standards that he's done, because there's a deep, body of work there beyond just this concert. This really is Vera Brandes' story. This young woman who, at 18, organized this concert, this legendary concert with this difficult personality of Keith at the time, who was run down, who was on the road, who was tired, exhausted, in pain, and didn't have the piano he usually played on. That's really the core of the story. Our Keith in this story is almost like a fever dream. It's this mythological version of him. These events in this car, didn't happen the way that we portray him in this film. There was no writer there. There was no Michael Watts, which is Michael Chernus' character, a great actor. It's a kind of an impression of what may have happened in that car, and I think that gave us freedom to riff and play around and improvise, if you will, within what may have happened. I knew nothing about Keith Jarrett. I knew nothing. I got the script and I read it, and that's all it took. I just really thought it was really unique and cool, and the role looked amazing. Looked like a lot of fun, challenging. You get to play piano, you get to play this legendary person. It really jumped off the page at me. And then it sent me, after reading it, it sent me down this hole of learning about Keith Jarrett, starting to listen to his music, going back to the Miles Davis days, reading about him, watching interviews, and it just really captivated me. But it didn't take much. Really, that reading the script really just locked me in. So I played drums. I had played piano before, but it had been years since I had played. It's just as you get older with instruments and with careers and families and stuff, you tend, unless that's your job, you tend to not do it. But I had a great teacher named Scott Gentile who really got me back up to speed, and it's fun. These are the fun things you get to do as an actor when you get to revisit old skills or learn new skills. It's really one of the joys of this process. Again, with Scott, we really broke down the way Keith played, his mannerisms, his release of tension, why he was doing these things, why he was making these sounds. We spent months kind of dissecting that, and yeah, it's a mixture. It's both technical and instinctive. Of course, I mean, it changed how I listen to jazz, and obviously Keith's music in particular. It's changed how I look at piano. You can't help when you live so close to this world for a while, and you're studying so much about it. It can't help but inform your new relationship with that kind of music and with that kind of world. Hey, so Manfred Eicher was like a manager, confidant, best friend, I guess kind of an agent, not real. Like, his role is kind of nebulous. It's strange. I don't know what title you would put on him. But in my conversations with Chris Jarrett, Keith's brother, he said at that time Manfred was Keith's closest thing to a friend. And obviously that's loaded because there was also a work dynamic there and a power dynamic. But having Alexander be that my Manfred was such a pleasure. He's just so tremendously talented. He has so much heart and soul in his work. And having him as my confidant, as my crutch in a way, both figuratively and literally at times when his back is giving out. I couldn't have asked for a more magical scene partner. Yeah, he's great. You know, I think for the most part, what is in the script is there. I think there's some little bits that are little bits of improv, because the script was already so solid, those scenes were already there. But I think we found some humor, some jokes, some which I think really highlights the relationship between Keith and Manfred. So it's not just this dour kind of thing. It has some levity. It has some love between the two men, because there had to have been a love for each other to be in that relationship, to share this crazy road trip and this insane tour that they were on together. And I think both of those men still have a real respect and love for each other. I've tried to dig into that, and there's people speculate, but I think it was a respect. I think Keith, if he respected you, it meant a lot. And I know he respected Manfred. And I think it went both ways. And sometimes that's a good starting point. But why? We can only guess, I think. The opera house, being in Poland in the opera house was really cool. I know it wasn't the Köln Opera House, but there was something really special about being there and on that stage and like having the piano. It was the closest that it felt to that connection with Keith. Wearing a recreation of what he wore on that day. Yeah, that was and playing the music on that stage. It's a really special moment. Yeah. Well, he gave me the freedom to do that, and he encouraged the improvisation. You know, I think we all understood that if we were going to make this movie about jazz, we needed to have a freedom and a looseness and a willingness to explore, and he encouraged that, and that's what you want, you know, from a director, to encourage you to go down that path, and yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of discovery because of that. You know, he had written a solid script, so I'm glad that he felt trust in us to really explore it and bring it to life. I talked to her when I met her about Keith and her relationship with him. A lot of what we already see in the script, but she's just such a remarkable woman, and I feel so lucky to have, first of all, been introduced to her story and then also be a part of her story. She is a special woman, and she did something just unbelievable by putting this concert together. So I'm glad her story is being shared.